There we go. How's that?
There, that sounds clear. That's good.
Hey!
All right.
My IT department came running down from upstairs. The two of us are clicking everything. Sorry about that. Yes, Ron. Ron says fix the sound. We fixed it. I know, Bill. Audio's bad.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So, okay. I don't know why it does that because it was fine when if we first connected. I checked everything. Everything
Yeah, I
was good.
know.
I tested. It was great. And then it went crazy. Sorry about that. Went a little wacky. I apologize. Thank you for tap dancing there, Tony.
Sure.
Appreciate that too.
Rubber baby buggy bumpers.
All right. So where can people find you if people want to find out what you're doing? Plug away.
So basically, there's three places. We're doing a series of things on YouTube. Thought to Action. We just had Dr. Steve Hadfield go through a bunch of coronavirus issues. Great stuff. Really like getting to the center of issues. Done a series of things with distinguished fellow Gordon Chang. Gordon's everywhere. And my friend, former commandant of the War College, Major General John Kim, KEM. The Norwegian spelling, not the Korean spelling, just saying, because everybody thinks he's Korean. It's like, no, he's not Korean, he's Norwegian, just saying. And so Gordon and John and I do a really good breakout of policy failures or policy issues regarding China. That's on Thought to Action. You can find it on YouTube. We're creating something called Project Sentinel, which we're doing some outreach. I'm actually picking up a letter from a certain individual to help us get going on that tomorrow. It's projectsentinel.net, projectsentinel.net, and it's going to be focused on the Constitution, on all the issues that I think the founding fathers would hope we'd be focused on, and we're not right now. And of course, londoncenter.org. London Center is the other think tank I run, which focuses on a series, all hazards of national security issues, and those are the places they can find me.
Great. So I will put all that information in the description at the bottom of this, at the bottom of the podcast on YouTube. I'll put all of that there. I'll put the links, and you can seek out Tony. So I love it. That sounds exciting. Please tell Gordon I said hello. The last time I saw Gordon was the last time I saw Joe DeGeneva and Victoria Tenzing, which was 2 summers ago in Washington, D.C. And we were all meeting up to have breakfast with Chuck Grassley, which was fun. Yeah, it was fun. I will tell you, the Senate dining room, like, I think it's all exciting. We're having breakfast at the Senate dining room. Like, it's a big deal. It's like a small conference room at a Holiday Inn. You walk inside and there's all this marble and everything when you walk inside, the Congress and Capitol Hill, and you walk in and you go over to the Senate side and it's all marble. And then you go into this room and you're like, oh, okay. Like, it was almost like you expected to have a rolling door, that goes into the wall so they can play volleyball later. It was really, really underwhelming, I have to say. I was really excited. I was like, oh, okay.
I've never been to the Senate dining room. I actually got to eat in the House dining room once, and it was notable by the fact that Nancy Pelosi almost knocked me over because she was moving through the crowd and had to get somewhere. So it was notable. She didn't even say excuse me. So just saying.
Well, are you shocked?
Not that I think she's rude or anything. Just maybe.
There was no one there when we were there. We were just, I think, because it was in 2021, so people were still kind of COVID-y, about it. And Menendez came in to sit down. And so since Gordon and I both live in New Jersey, we're on our way out, and he's like, should we go over? I'm like, okay. And I said, do I have to be nice? He's like, yes, you have to be nice. Like, damn it, Gordon. Damn it. So I was nice. All right. So just a couple of stories. I have 2 stories here that I wanted to share because these are news stories that I don't think got a lot of play. And I think they're important news stories. So I when I find those, I like to kind of throw them in because they're really not getting a lot of play on mainstream media. The TSA is spending about $18.6 million that they've received in funding, so our money, to test and deploy non-binary screening systems for approximately 7% of the population. We have to spend $18.6 million. It's from the Omnibus Appropriations Funds from 2022. And you got to spend it or you lose it. And this money's been used to improve advanced imaging technology units in airport check-ins. and they're working with the manufacturer to update the algorithm for increased accuracy and efficiency. The new technology will roll out at airports next month, but individuals who feel their gender was incorrectly assumed now have the option to ask for a rescreening before submitting to a physical pat-down. So my question is like, well, I think that they made a mistake. I want a rescreening. I don't want to be filled up by some TSA agent. Granted, it's probably going to be the most action I get in a while, but why can't I opt for that too? Why are they the only ones who get that option?
I don't know. To me, the whole TSA thing is insane. The tests have shown, Mary, that half the time they don't catch what they're supposed to catch.
Oh, 100%.
And this whole focus on gender is insane. Every individual should be screened if a indicator that something is on their person, no matter what gender you are, you need to be sent off to secondary. That's it. That's it. Doesn't matter if you use the right pronouns or not. It's another distraction. It's more woke nonsense that does nothing to improve security, but clearly tries to send a message to the left, the progressive left, saying, "Oh, we really feel your pain. We really want to really help you with your psychological deficit, and continue to pretend that you're not a man or a woman." So it's just insane.
It is ridiculous. They get 26,542 screening complaints annually. Well, of course they do. 6% of those, 6% are from the complaints are from members from the LGBTQ community. And I would tend to think that they're vocal than most, right? So I don't know if those are legitimate complaints, but only 6%. So because of 6% of the population of that small population, which is only 7% of the population approximately, and only 6% of that 7% have complained. Or
I don't see the point. Well, that's the thing, Mary. It's like if you're going through security and something happens that they alert on you, it doesn't matter what sex you are. It just doesn't matter. You need to go to secondary. You need to, if they offer you the rescan, so what? Rescan, go rescan. It doesn't really matter. It's going to just detect whatever your profile is. And if you got something stuck somewhere you're not supposed to have it stuck, that's different. And I've heard, not me, but I've heard, I've never had it happen, people with like mental pieces stuck in their body, piercings all over, that will set things off. And yeah, I mean, naturally, if you're pierced somewhere that's, very unusual, they're going to pull you aside and they're going to ask you questions. It's kind of like, you need to expect that, and I've known some people who are used to it. It's like, yeah, not that I, know too many people, but I do know some who actually have the piercings. And they go through and they just know. It's like, yeah, I'm pierced. This is going to set it off. And they tell them in advance, like, this is probably going to happen. And they deal with it. It's a decision.
You take the piercing out, you put it in your bag. And then when you get wherever you're going, you go to the ladies' room or the men's room or the it room, and you put it back in.
Yeah, or you can leave it in to get the secondary. I don't know. I mean, maybe they like the secondary. I don't know. I mean, maybe they like being screened. Who knows?
So listen to the TSA had updated. They're getting new, sharper imaging technology. Yay! Reduce the number of pat downs. This technology should really be gender neutral. It really should be, and we're getting there, according to TSA's executive director for travel engagement. Now, the TSA previously updated its standard operating procedures for security personnel to permit less invasive screening measures for certain passengers that trigger an alert in sensitive areas. The change was made to reduce pat downs, as I said. But listen to this. In February, TSA also updated its checkpoint protocols by removing gender consideration with validating identification. TSA employees no longer consider gender information when travelers arrive at the traveler document checker podium. Really? This is like when there's a crime committed and they won't mention the race of the perpetrator, but they want everybody to, like, how am I supposed to look out for this person if you don't give me a description? So now we can't look at race and we can't look at gender. How the hell do I know? I mean, you take it out the two biggest identifiers of how to identify somebody, and those are off the table.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, that's like that Sam Breon or whatever his name was. I mean, that's amazing. He got caught since
Britain.
he's like, what is he?
Sam
What's his
Britton.
name? That's
Britain.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I'm not sure. Is Matt Damon and he the same guy? I've never seen him in the same room together. Just asking for,
No, he doesn't look anything like Matt Damon.
I think he looks like a bald Matt Damon. Just saying.
No.
Well, maybe.
You take
Anyway.
that back. Matt Damon's way better looking than that. Oh, you
Okay.
take that back.
Yeah, all right. Well, I don't know. I've never seen them in the same room together. Just saying. Just if you know.
What do you have against Matt Damon? What's going on?
Nothing. I think he was great in America World Police. He had a great role in America World Police, as I recall. I think. Remember that movie?
No, I didn't see.
Oh, you just see it. America's Team America World Police.
Didn't see it.
You need to see it. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
Doesn't seem like a movie I would see. Oh, is he dressed like a woman in that movie?
I don't know.
Because I'm not going to watch it, so you might as well just tell me it's not happening.
Kim Il-chong singing "I'm Ronry," so it's a great movie. So. It's a great movie.
Awesome.
It's a really good movie. Yeah.
Also, TSA pre-check has been overhauled to be more inclusive as well, with the option to include an X gender marker option on the application.
Yes, I saw that. I got my renewal, and they have it on there now. Believe it or not.
Don't you want to pick X just to pick it?
No.
Like just because you can?
I don't.
Like why not? Just because you can. Why not? I cannot tell you the number of things that I fill out where they ask for, my nationality, which by the way is American. If you want my heritage, that's something different. But my nationality is American. Don't ask me what my nationality is and include things like Hispanic, Black, white. That's not my nationality. That drives me crazy. I cannot tell you how many people think I am American Samoan because I pick Pacific Islander. I pick Samoan. I just do it just to mess with people. Just because it's just so annoying to me. I do that. All right. We're on a strict time schedule because Tony is going to be on Newsmax. Whose show are you going to be on?
I'm going to be on with Jen Pellegrino.
Oh, Jen. Please tell Jen I said hello.
9:25. I will. So 9:25. I'm doing a thing on TikTok at 9:25.
Oh, okay. Oh, please.
They changed the time since we spoke. Yeah, it was going to be 9:05. Now it's 9:25. You know how it is. They always move things around.
Oh, they always change it. Yeah. So I know Jen from back when she was like an intern at Fox News with Eric Bolling. She used to hang out together. So I'm so glad.
Eric's over there now too. I think they've all moved over.
I know.
Yeah. Fox is not Fox. I was talking to a former Fox reporter. I don't know if you caught it when we started. I was talking to a former Fox reporter, just saying. No longer with Fox. So. They've lost their mojo.
Yeah, well, they lost us, so there you go. Listen to this.
Yeah.
HHS. So, Washington State has asked for a gimme to exercise a loophole in Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. Now, we were told when they did Affordable Care Act that everyone was going to be covered. Everyone's going to have insurance. There's no reason why, no one wouldn't have insurance. And shockingly, there's a lot of people who are still uninsured.
Right.
Imagine that. But we were also told illegals will never get, this will never be open because what did the right say? It's going to be expanded. It's going to cover people who are in the country illegally. We're all going to be paying for it. And guess what? Here you go. It's like we're psychic. It's like we're psychic. So Washington State requested a waiver in order to expand access to qualified health plans, standalone qualified dental plans, and a state affordability program to Washington residents regardless of immigration status. And the Department of Treasury and the Department of Health and Human Services approved their request. So they're the first state in the country to do that, but other states are going to now follow suit as well. California, New York, New Jersey, Illinois, the usual suspects are now going to do the same thing. The waiver will help Washington, now listen to this, work towards its goals of improving health equity and reducing racial disparities by expanding access to coverage for the uninsured population through the state exchange, all the while not increasing costs for those currently enrolled. Now, okay, that last part there's a lie. Because someone's got to pay for it. So the costs are going to go up. The more uninsured people you put in a plan, the more it costs. So there's that.
Right.
But they're doing it to improve health equity and reduce racial disparities.
Boy, I don't know where to begin on this one. Anything to do with equity is reverse discrimination, period. That's what it is. And
So it's discrimination. There's no such thing as reverse. It's discrimination.
it's discrimination. And so it's against the law. And I really do hope, Mary, the Republicans get in and say, anytime you bring up equity, that's against the law. It's discrimination. And that needs to be clarified. This whole issue of illegal aliens and costs, most of those things that state's going to learn to, because most of those things eventually come back to the state. The federal government gives some level of money, but most of the states get stuck with the majority of the bill, which means a lot of that gets stuck in taxes at the state level. And I'm in a red state, North Carolina. They don't have a lot of issues because they do try to run a fairly, as a matter of fact, I met the treasurer. They try to he's a Republican, by the way. He tries to run a very tight ship. They don't do this sort of thing. And these states who do that not only presume that you're going to not raise the cost, even though you will, the federal government only gives you so much, which means that the costs are going to come from your increased fees to the individual and the state. The state picks up the slack as well. And so this is all nonsense. It's expensive stuff that only encourages illegal aliens to come there. This is going to be a magnet. Once this gets out, it's like they're going to, that which you, as Ronald Reagan once said, that which you add, you endorse it. That which you endorse or subsidize, you get more of, and you're going to get more illegal aliens. It's like Seattle. When they started making it a great place for drug addicts to live out in the open, more drug addicts came and lived out in the open.
Yeah.
So it's really sad for the people who live there, but they're being lied to, and I hope they wake up.
Well, what's going to happen? Look at California with Governor Newsom saying, like, we're California, our resources are at the breaking point. We need help. So what they do, they're actually quite smart. Democrats are quite brilliant, and I give them so much credit, and I wish the Republicans would learn from them, but they don't. They cave constantly. Mitch McConnell caving on this next budget thing. That's what Republicans do. Democrats hold strong, Republicans cave, and Democrats win. Every single time, over and over and over. What they're doing here is actually brilliant because they're creating a crisis. The border's a crisis created by Democrats, right? Gavin Newsom says, well, so many illegals are coming to our state where it's taxing our systems and we're on the verge of collapse. We can't keep this up, right? Well, that's because you offered them free this, free that, driver's licenses, all these other things. It's so people, because you're so inclusive, now you don't have the money. So what do? They go to Washington. We need you to declare an emergency. We have an immigration emergency. Federal government declares an emergency, gives them money from conservative, responsible states, and they can continue to be irresponsible and continue to do what they want to do. It's actually brilliant.
And again, to your point, the people who are actually concerned about the well-being of the nation have to stop allowing the progressive left from abusing the goodwill of the people, the citizens, and of other states, because ultimately, to your point, Mary, other states pay for California's bad behavior. The Democrat Party is convinced, for whatever reason, that a permanent underclass will benefit that. That's why you see these open border policies, unrestricted access to the United States. Their belief is if they can create enough poor people, that those poor people who become addicted to government handouts and goodies will always vote them back in. And those of us who are saying, no, you need to be responsible. You need to do the right thing based on the Constitution and being responsible with spending, are always the bad guys. We're always, we don't have compassion. We lack empathy. And we do. I do. Because my family, my family came here in last century. It was, I think, 1910 on Lusitania from Spain. For the Fernandez side of the family, they immigrated legally. They went to a little place called Cherryvale, Kansas. They worked in a copper smelter. Copper smelter work is horrible, but they knew that they were coming to do that job. They were able to get into America, become American citizens, knowing that they were going to go work in this miserable job. But they did it, and they did it the right way. And I think most immigrants, I know a number of folks who are legal immigrants who are just fed up with this unmitigated access to illegals who normally don't bring any great skills. They have no guarantee of income. They have no jobs, so they have to basically live off the state. And they establish in these inner cities communities where they're victimized by their own criminal element. It's a terrible
100%.
cycle, and yet the left loves it. This is what they do. And then when it gets out of hand, it's like, oh, we need help. You did this. You created this. It's nonsense. And I would just tell Newsom, if I were Congress, no, you figure it out. You created it. You broke it. You fix it. So.
Well, sounds good in practice, but we all know Republicans won't do that. Let's talk about some election news. Kari Lake has this lawsuit going on in Arizona, and it starts. I think the trial starts on Monday. There's some things going on over the weekend, but the trial starts on Monday, and they're fast tracking this thing. But what's interesting with this, she is alleging that more than 25,000 ballots were added to the Maricopa County vote total after the election. She's also been on with Tucker and others saying that she is, whistleblowers who are going to come and they're going to put their hand up and they're going to testify to what they saw. But I was on Sirius this morning and for Alex Marlowe on the morning show on Breitbart News Daily, and we had Hans von Spakovsky on. And he said, unfortunately, the bar is so high because she has to prove that the outcome of the election would have been different. Now, how do you prove that? How do you know? Okay, 25,000 votes. Well, what percentage would have gone to you? What percentage would have gone to Katie Hobbs? You don't know. And that's the hard part. It's almost impossible to fight this, especially after the election's been certified. But Arizona's laws are you can't sue until after it's been certified.
Well, I just, you and I have spoken about this a number of times over the years. I've had my own experience with fake ballots and mass fraud of things being dumped into a system. So this is how they win. Governor DeSantis has it correct. DeSantis essentially has set up a system which has gone after people who put together machines to dump ballots in after the voting count stops. So, in Florida, everything is done by election night, period. That's it. You can't keep counting. Mary, the moment you allow counting to continue after the day of voting it's open for fraud. It happens.
Yep.
And so I have no doubt, unfortunately, that those ballots got dumped in. And I think the progressive left has a machine. They can put it together. My own experience tells me that they make huge investments. I mean, I don't know if you want to get into tonight, but Sam Bankman-Fried paid millions to the Democrat machine.
Yes,
I would argue probably close to $1 billion. And he was given like $1 million here, $1 million there. That's a lot of money. You can do a lot of evil things with $1 million in a campaign. And so when you give that to people who then are motivated, like Katie Hobbs, who certifies her own election, just saying that doesn't sound right. You have all the different options to know where in the system there's a vulnerability, and you can dump in ballots which are essentially not even tied to an individual. They're basically fake ballots. But how do you prove that to that point? How do you prove which ones are real, which ones are not? There's a number of things I think need to be done. You need to watermark ballots so each ballot is individually notable. It's unique. You need to figure out a way to make sure that these things are maintained with security the day of the election, and that's it. You count that day, and like DeSantis does, and every state needs to look at this. And Arizona is a broken state, and I feel for Kari for going through this, but it's a real high bar, and I'm sorry, I'm convinced that the progressive left does cheat, and this was a massive example of a cheat.
Well, and the right has to learn, you know what? Those machines, to Kari Lake's point, those machines were working fine for all the early voting, but the day of the election, all of a sudden, everything went down. There was no ink, there was no paper, there was this or that. Republicans need to learn to utilize the early voting. If that's the way the game is, if that's the way the rules are, and you can do that, then you need to get out and you need to vote early. And for the first time, we had the ability to vote early in New Jersey, and we had two different places we could go. One was in a very nice, wealthy area, way better off than we are, and the other one was in it's a Democrat city, a lot of large legal population. So I said to my husband, I think that's where we go to vote because they're going to assume we're Democrats. and those machines are not going to be messed with. So that's where we're going to go to vote and vote early. Don't vote the day of, because my husband went to go vote the day of here, and for the second time in a row, they couldn't get the machines working. They couldn't, they couldn't get them connected to the internet. And I'm like, why are they connected to the internet? I thought they were supposed to be connected to the internet. Why are they connected to the internet? So I'm a big fan now of, you know what, if you can't beat them, join them, vote early. That's just the only way to do it. Al makes a great point here. He says, they're not looking for voters, Democrats. He said, illegals count towards the population count that assigns seats in the House of Representatives. The illegals will most likely live in Democrat districts. And he's right. That's the game.
Yes and no, because they Democrats are constantly trying to ship people out to red areas so they can water down the areas of dominance by the Republicans. So I see all this shipping of people all over the country trying to basically up in, especially in urban areas, those numbers. And with urban creep, like here in North Carolina, you've got the big cities who always vote Democrat. We're out here in the country. We're in a very red county, very red. And yet, if you see they put these the illegal aliens into these big cities, it creeps out. They creep out. They start getting into the suburbs, and those suburbs then become purple, then they become blue. So it's not just about, they're trying to overwhelm our system of what the conservatives have access to as well. So.
Yeah, no, they are. But I think that turning of the turning blue is really more Democrats who are fleeing the cities. They did it to New Jersey. I remember when New Jersey used to be red, and then they fled New York in the 80s and 90s, and they moved into the suburbs of New Jersey so they could still drive an hour and a half. But they vote for the same stuff that they just fled. You saw it happen in Virginia, right? Like in Virginia, look what happened with DC and Maryland, right? They emptied out into Virginia. They vote for the same crap they just left. They're doing it to North Carolina with New Yorkers and people from New Jersey, because North Carolina, you can still, they call it the halfback, right? Like they call it the halfback because you're halfway back home. It's not all the way to Florida. I can still go home and see the grandkids and the family and like that in a day. I can drive it. I don't have to fly. It's more convenient. And they vote for the same crap they just left. It's insane. It's an absolute unbelievable.
Yeah, no, we've got neighbors. They're about, about a half mile that way. I know they came from California. They brought their politics with them. It's like, and that's something that really concerns me. For better or for worse, North Carolina actually publishes people's addresses with their registration, basically. So you can go through a neighborhood and you can see who's Democrat, Republican, or Independent. And by the way, they force you to declare when you get your driver's license. So you got to say, I'm Republican, Democrat, or Independent. And that's And then so you kind of know who's who from the state. The state just tells people who they are. So I have no problem with that fundamentally, but it is interesting that they do that. So
yeah. Well, here we just look for the car with the New York plates in the driveway. So one other quick thing, and I have to thank my friend Pete, who sends me so much stuff. He sent me an article that talks about the whistleblowers in Maricopa County. Have revealed that nearly 300,000 ballots illegally had no chain of custody documentation. On page 44 of the lawsuit, employees of Runbeck make shocking observations about the ballots being delivered. According to the lawsuit, Runbeck received 298,942 ballots on Election Day, which include early vote ballots. The required chain of custody for these ballots does not exist. 2 days later, on November 10th, the employee observed that Maricopa County had to ask Runbeck how many ballots Runbeck had received on election night, demonstrating that Maricopa County itself didn't know how many early vote ballots had been retrieved from ballot drop boxes on Election Day in violation of Arizona law. And if you follow Liz Harrington, she is, she's at Real Liz USA. She has a lot of this, she's gone through the lawsuit, and she's published a bunch of it. So, and I will put all the links to all these stories in the description below on YouTube as well. All right. So there's that. Last thing, David Harsanyi has an interesting piece that I will post. And he alleges that the First Amendment is dying and you might be killing it. Not you particularly, but you in general. And he says, it's clear to me that many Americans have stopped idealizing free expression. They don't view it as a neutral valve or societal good and not even a platitude. They definitely don't believe in counter speech doctrine. In fact, some people are fine with compelling their fellow citizens to say things. And I mean, how many times have people lost their jobs because many teachers have been thrown out because they won't call a child he or she or their preferred pronoun or they or whatever it is because they're in eighth grade and shouldn't have opinions. And as my father used to say to me, you're in eighth grade. Do you pay taxes? No. All right, shut up. And that was the end of it. It's like, I don't care about your opinion. Go. Um, he goes on to say, technocrats, journalists, the president, and self-styled experts often view unfettered speech as a cancer that threatens diversity or social justice or democracy or the environment or safety or unions or on and on and on, or other issues that are perched high above speech in the hierarchy of modern values. The First Amendment doesn't work because guys in powdered wigs wrote down words, but because society embraces its underlying values as they did due process or property rights. The spirit of the thing matters. Is he right that Americans no longer value free speech?
I think they've been beaten down on it. There's three elements I think are important to kind of supports his argument. Obviously, we saw at Twitter, the Musk files, the Twitter files we've seen, that a certain category of individual, we'll just call them Marxists to make them into a loose group,
Let's call them
were completely committed to banning any speech they disagreed with, to include the president. It's like, yeah, he's a threat to society. Really? Where'd you get that from? Oh, we made it up. So when you get that at that level, and these were all, folks from their 20s to their 40s. I guess Vijaya was about 48. I think she's probably one of the older ones. They all were committed to essentially eliminating any speech they disagreed with and then lied about it and lied under oath about it. So, that I think had a huge effect on society. Secondly, we've seen Ted Lieu was just yesterday talking about how none of this free speech is overrated. I can't remember the exact quote, but he was saying, what's the big deal? So what? We suppress speech. And when you have politicians and the left, the progressive left accepting that, then there's something really wrong because that is reinforced with their kids. And then to your point, Mary, schools, kids are minors. They have not reached the age of majority. Parents should have a great deal of say, I'd say the ultimate say, on what they can learn and not learn. And I don't believe for a minute that any school can tell them what to think if their parents think that they should have free speech. If when my son goes to school, I know he likes the Army. He wore an Army jersey the other day. He should have the right to wear that. So what? If you don't like the Army, you're anti-military, so what? He gets to express it. And the idea that school officials who may not like the military could say something. I mean, this is an example. There's other examples out there. He might wear a Trump shirt one day, and I could see all sorts of fireworks coming out of it. So what? It's not illegal. So the idea that we've allowed our administrators and the education system to become conduits of suppression of free speech is very dangerous. So those things do indicate to me that we're losing the battle. But again, I'm a purist. Elon Musk has said, like for Twitter, unless you break the law, you should be able to say pretty much anything you want. And I agree with that. Even if you don't like it, you can block people. You don't have to listen. There's all sorts of options you have. But the idea that you're going to moderate based on your personal beliefs that someone may not share it's not as disinformation. It's suppression of the First Amendment. I think that's where we're very much in danger right now.
So to play two things that you said, Elon Musk, and I wrote this down when I was reading this, and I have long said that the further you get away from your immigration story, the less you value what you have in this country, and the less you understand American values and what America was built on, and why the right is the way it is. Elon Musk he chose to become a citizen of this country, so he gets it. He knows that, hey, you're supposed to have free speech here. So I'm giving you free speech, and he's big enough to not be canceled and they can't touch him. And he knows that. So he can do it. but he understands American values. He understands what, what America represents to the rest of the world, or used to represent to the rest of the world. So for him saying, well, I'll just put it out there, let people decide. To him, that's what you do in America. That's
Exactly.
what you do. And so I think that is one of the reasons Elon Musk is the way he is because he is the immigrant. So not only he's close to his story because the immigrant is him. Al says, my rights don't end where your offense begins. That's where they start. Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And so then the point to that, Mary, before you get off that point, is another thing to remember is that this has to do with American exceptionalism. And people always get it wrong. American exceptionalism is the fact that you can come here and do and say things you can't anywhere else. That's American exceptionalism. That's why Elon Musk is here, because he can embrace and use American exceptionalism to his benefit. That's what it is. It doesn't make us better than the rest of the world. It means if you come here, you have better opportunity to enjoy the freedoms that we have. That's what is exceptional. It's not, and so it's not about being better. It's about the fact that you can do better and be much more prominent like Elon Musk. So
yeah, 100%. The other thing you had said, a lot of times we don't say certain things, and David Harsanyi goes into that. He says, we are often a society of self-censors. Orwell was concerned that independent journalists and publishers would, quote, keep certain topics out of print, not because they were, quote, frightened of prosecution, but because they are frightened of public opinion. And then he goes on to say, I suspect reporters and producers at ABC, CBS, and NBC are not refusing to cover the Twitter files because they're trying to hide the truth, but because they can't comprehend why social media, colluding with the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security, and the White House to quash stories in the preservation of democracy, is newsworthy to begin with. And I think he's absolutely right. These people don't think, well, they don't think there's a problem with that. They don't see the problem. And that's because they're not journalists, they're hacks. They go to journalism school, which, by the way, if you're contemplating it, do us all a favor, don't. Do yourself a favor, do your wallet a favor. You don't need journalism school. Right. But because all they do is they're ideologues that just churn out the DNC newsletter under the guise of the Washington Post or the New York Times, which, by the way, Washington Post has lost about 500,000 subscribers, digital subscribers, and they're going to be conducting layoffs. And they're very upset that they got word that layoffs are coming. And they were not given an explanation as to why. And they wanted to be able to question the boss as to why this is happening. And I'm like, oh, honey, it's not how it works. It's not how it works.
So to that point, Mary, I mean, and one of the things that drives me nuts, we don't have a democracy. We are a representative republic.
Yes.
We're a congressional republic. And I just every time I hear that, it's like, okay, you don't understand what country you're in if you think we live in a democracy. So recently we have a little battle going on here in Edenton, Mary, over a Confederate statue. It's downtown. Still is there.
Oh, yes.
Huge fight.
Yeah.
So on the statue, it says, to our Confederate dead. That's all it says. It was purchased by the families who lost folks during the war, during the Civil War. And so the battle is raging right now, where you have every Saturday from noon to 3, I think, both sides showing up to protest, the pro and the against. One of the pro move is a doctor who basically did an editorial a few days ago in the local paper, in the Chowan Gazette, saying that if you don't agree with us, the progressive left, you're a racist. And it's like, okay, I've had enough of this. I am fed up, and I did a letter to the editor saying I am fed up with this academic malfeasance, that she's using her academic standing to basically say, simply because I have a different opinion than she does, I'm a racist. And so I just laid it all out. And she even admits in this thing, Mary, that, removing the statue won't stop racism. It's like, no, racism is against the law. I said this in my response. It's against the law. We can't accept it. But you all keep bringing it back. And the only thing I said I agree with her on is, like, we need to talk about history, because their history is what they're trying to cover up. Andrew Jackson, the Trail of Tears, Woodrow Wilson, the whole thing with separate but equal. He started that nonsense. FDR and the internment of Japanese prisoners. Yep. It goes on and on and on. So I basically said, I am more than happy to revisit and debate history as long as you use facts, not feelings about the issue. And I'm just fed up with the left not being honest about the issues of their history, not ours. So,
but the thing is, too, is they also have to realize that, yes, it was the Democrats who were defeated in the Civil War, and they're just trying to erase their history. And friends of ours, when they moved to Virginia years and years and years ago, we went into North Carolina and we're looking at all this stuff. And I just looked at my friend. I'm like, why are there so many second place trophies? Right?
Exactly. I said this in the editorial. Like, hey,
don't say that.
No, I do. And I said it in my editorial. Like, I have no problem with this. This reminds me that they lost, we won. That's it. What's wrong with that? I have no problem with that.
But here's the thing, the reason they exist is because after the war, right, it was important to bring the country together. You had to become one country. And if one side was going to be continually beaten down for it, it wasn't going to work. You had families that were torn apart where, you know,
Right.
some fought in the north, some fought in the south. You couldn't do that. And so there are pictures at Gettysburg where, you know, how many years later, 50 years later, whatever it was, they got together and they had a dinner of men who served on the north and men who served on the south, and they shook hands and they had a congenial time because they're all Americans. Nobody beat down the other side and called them racists and, you know, threw things at them and told them they had to be driven from society. And that's the only reason the country came back together as one country and was not still fractured, was because of the acknowledgement that, okay, you know, what you were fighting for, we disagree with, but it's amazing how many white people put their lives on the line to die to free Black people.
A lot, a whole lot.
But we're all inherently racist.
I know, it's insane.
I was watching.
Here's the thing. Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. I was going to say, I was along these lines. Dr. Phil was on said, when did Dr. Phil become woke and talk about politics? When did that happen? So he's going into this whole Karen thing, and he had an Indian woman and a Black woman on the stage with this white woman who, you know, was identified as a Karen in a video, and they're just going on and on about how the way to stop racism is through white women, and you know, we just have to put it out there. We have to accept that there's white privilege and inherent racism from white people because of their white privilege. I was like, how is this Dr. Phil? What is this happening? Like, it's everywhere. I turned it off. I am so sick and tired of being judged by the color of my skin because they say they were judged by the color of theirs. Okay, I didn't judge you. So why are you dragging me into this?
Right. Well, that's where I'm just fed up too, because, like, you know, I've served in the military. It's completely ambivalent to color or race. It doesn't matter.
Right.
You serve, you're green. If you're Army, you go through all that. So I'm just, Lawrence Joshua Chamberlain made the point. General Chamberlain, Colonel Chamberlain of Little Round Top in the Battle of Gettysburg. Yes. He actually made it a point his entire life, after he was the Chancellor of Bowdoin University, Governor of Maine. His other work was just bringing soldiers back together to heal those wounds between the North and South. And to that point, I think you cannot dishonor those who sacrificed, even if they sacrificed for the wrong reason. It's just accept it. You need to accept that history. It happened. And we need to be reminded of how bad it was to go to war against each other. And I think that's something we cannot forget. We have to remember it was a war. It was a bloody war. But to your point, Mary, a lot of folks died to make sure that all men and women have the right to be free. And I'm just, again, tired of my opinion. If I don't agree with a progressive left, I'm all of a sudden a racist. And to me, that's a racist thing to say by them.
Agree, 100%. Al says Supreme Court has affirmed that political speech is the most protected of free speech. Confederacy is the U.S. oldest tradition, ratified in 1781. I just want to read this one thing that David Harsanyi says towards the end of his piece. He says, throughout history, authoritarians have claimed that liberty must be subdued because of some perilous historic moment. That moment now is every time Democrats don't get their way. If these people have no problem with the state and corporations that control the public square working together to dictate appropriate speech, how long is it before the idea of curbing dangerous disinformation through legislation is normalized? At some point, if a majority of voters stop caring, it won't matter who owns Twitter or who sits on the board. You cannot compel people to be free. And I think he's right. And this goes back to what you had brought in originally with Elon Musk, is that, you know, Elon Musk loves his freedom. He loves America and the freedom that it represents, because he came from somewhere that didn't have the same freedoms. Americans don't value their freedoms, and so they don't protect them, and they just let them be whittled away and made less because they take them for granted. At least I,
Right.
you know.
No, I grew up, I went to high school in Lisbon, Portugal. I got exposed to the international community pretty early on in the 70s. It was a while back. But it was notable that, you know, having interacted with folks from all over the world, from Africa, from South Africa, one of my best friends was from South Africa, Russia, China, all of the, because we were part of the international community there in Lisbon, it was notable that, yeah, we all understood as Americans the benefit of having free speech. These other folks were fascinated by it. I think that's why they attended the American school, because
Right.
the American school taught American values and concepts. And I think, again, American exceptionalism is not about us being better. It's not. It's not. It's about the fact you can come here and be American and do better. That's it. That's the idea.
Right.
And
Right.
I think that's what the left tends to forget, is that being an American is important. And I just don't know if they love America. I just don't get the left and
Oh,
how they
no.
approach things.
No, they don't. That's why they hated Donald Trump so much, and the whole MAGA movement. I mean, I watch MSNBC, I have it on, and they like the words MAGA like drips with such disdain out of their mouth. But it's just the love of America and the idea of America. And just because Donald Trump, they just hate it. They hate us.
Right.
They hate the idea. And of course, they hate Donald Trump because of it. Ron says, I worked in a meritocracy that was like a UN. No race, no nationality, just your work quality. Oh, if only. And I know where he worked, and he's 100% right. I know exactly where he used to work. And it is like that. And it is all nationalities, mostly men, but all, right, Ron? Mostly men, but all nationalities. And it was just about performance. It was, this is what you need to do. And like the military, Tony, right? It's like
Right.
the military. I don't care. The military used to care what color you were, but that doesn't matter anymore. Now it's just get the job done.
Yeah, and look, I've told this story before, and I'm sure Bob doesn't like hearing it. My favorite general happens to be a black general, Bob Harding. It wasn't because he was black. He just knew how to kick ass. He was an operative who got promoted to general. I love the man. He was just the best guy in the job. And, you know, I just don't understand why his color made it. And he didn't act, I was like, I'm just a general. I'm just a guy like you. I'm trying to get things done. And that's what the way I see the world is like. If you know what you're doing, I respect you. If you depend on getting a leg up because of skin color or gender, you know, it just doesn't play well. And I've seen things go catastrophically wrong because people who were stuck in positions of authority who were not qualified to be there because of some discriminator based on color or gender. It's not a good look, and it doesn't suit the country well to have that happen. Just saying.
Look at the current administration.
Yeah.
Look at our vice president. I'm going to pick a black woman. Okay, well, that narrowed the choices down. He didn't pick a competent one. He just picked a black woman. We have the first gay secretary of transportation, a first openly gay cabinet minister. Okay, we have a rail crisis looming, and he's on vacation in Paris, right? He would take paternity leave during the height of the supply chain crisis and didn't appoint anyone to take over for him. He just left and didn't appoint anybody. We had that Sam Britton guy, you know, who's one of the first gender fluid fill in the blank, whatever. Karine Jean-Pierre, the first black gay female press secretary, who I actually kind of feel sorry for her because she just sits there. She looks like someone who's been called to give a book report who didn't read the book.
Yeah. No, she is so out of her element. And I feel, you know, I know John Kirby, and I know John was sent over there to help coach her. John, it ain't working. Just saying, you know, you need to do a better job of coaching. Just work harder. Try harder, John, please.
Yeah, it's terrible. She's terrible. And I kind of, like I said, I almost feel sorry for her. Did you see her? She was talking about the bicameral bipartisan
Yes, I saw it.
caramel. And she kept saying buy caramel. It's still like
Yeah.
like a tasty treat.
And
And I
the
was like,
Nobel prizes. Do you hear the Nobel Peace prizes?
instead of Nobel. I was just like,
I presume you have a degree of something. I don't know what it is though. So
she doesn't read before she goes out there. Then what are all the little stickies and all the little color-coded little tabs in that book? She must spend all day scrapbooking. Like it's just like a giant scrapbook, and that's must be what she does all day. But oh Lord, Ron says yes, mostly men, but it slowly changed. Al, when the South decided to secede, they approached England and France about recognizing us as a
they
sovereign
did.
nation. They both said if the South ended slavery, they would be recognized, and Jefferson Davis agreed to end slavery before the North invaded us. Clearly, Al lives in the South and hasn't gotten over the whole thing.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know if that's true or not. I think that the South depended on slavery as an economic engine, and they weren't going to give up easily. So the South always says it was about state rights. Yes, it was about state rights to keep slavery, and so let's not fool ourselves here. Yes, it was about state rights. My issue with this, Mary, just so you know, a lot of people who were enlisted to fight in that war didn't own slaves, had no interest in slaves. They were fighting because they thought it was the right thing to do to defend their sovereignty. And so that's what I mean about you need to let go of who fought. The soldiers who fought were not slave owners. Some were, not all, but the idea that we need to now bring that all up is a little bit insane. And I always remind the Democrats, it was the Southern Democrats who broke away and the Northern Democrats who tried to end the war before a victory was achieved. Just saying. So.
There you go. And if you ever want, if you're really interested in this whole history of slavery, Thomas Sowell has an amazing book called Black, Redneck, and White Liberal. It is a fascinating book. I would read it again when I broke my leg and I was in bed for 6 weeks earlier this year. My friends sent me a bunch of books, and that was one of the books they sent me. And he uses a lot of unnecessarily big words. Where he could use smaller words that I wouldn't have to look up. But that's Thomas Sowell. But it's fascinating. It is such a good book. The history of slavery, the reality of slavery in the United States. Slaves are brought here. Most of the slaves are brought here before it was even the United States of America.
Right.
They were brought here when it was England. It wasn't even the U.S. They were here when we became the U.S., So, but really, really super, super interesting book. I highly recommend it. Black, Redneck, White Liberal. Al's claims that it had nothing to do with slavery. And he also says, I can prove you wrong, Tony, in so many different ways, but you're not going to get into that. So
if you revise history, sure, I'm sure you could, but I know history. So
yeah, well, we're not going to get into it because I want to get Tony out of here because he has a hit with our friend Jen. So again, please tell Jen that I said hello. All right. Tell Victoria and Joe and Gordon that I said hello. Although I'm in touch with Gordon, I sometimes book him on some shows. I'll have to get him on the podcast. He'd be fun on the podcast as well.
He would. We went through a bunch of stuff on the internal issues of China recently. And of course, I'm talking about TikTok here shortly. So there's a lot of stuff you guys could break down. So
he's so smart. And the thing I love about Gordon is that he can put it into terms that anybody can understand. He doesn't talk up here about it, so you don't feel like an idiot and you're not bored, because people, I think, are like, okay, that's really boring, it's dry, but he breaks it down to a level that everybody can understand and makes it super interesting. So I'll have to get him too. All right. Thank you so much for joining me.
Mary.
I really appreciate seeing you, having you on.
Too.
And I have a great weekend and Merry Christmas.
You too. I'll see you again hopefully soon.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
I'll see everybody on Monday on the Chris Salcedo show between 4:30 and 5 o'clock with Michael Reagan. Have a good one. Bye.
You're listening to Mary Walter.